welcome to the Actual Tech Media EcoCast. My name is Jess, and I am excited to be here with you all today. But before we jump into our content, I have some basic information that I want to cover with you. All right, let's kick off our day here today by taking a quick tour of your audience console. And we're going to start with the questions window. So if you haven't already said hi, there is a whole audience of cool humans out there, so reach out and give a wave to the other members of the Actual Tech Media community. Now, keep in mind that if you do have any technical issues today, a browser refresh is going to fix just about anything. But if those tech gremlins are clinging on today, no problem. Just throw a comment in the question section and our crew will be there to help. We also want this to be an informative webinar for you, so throughout today's EcoCast, we hope you'll get engaged and ask all your burning questions. Not only will we have team members responding to you over a live chat, we will also have a dedicated Q&A session at the end of our presentations. Now, if we don't get to your question during the live webinar today, don't worry, because the awesome experts that we have here with us will be following up after we wrap. All right, next up, there's going to be lots of cool aha moments on the EcoCast today. And if you want to share those with your community, we've made it nice and easy for you. You can use the Twitter button right there in your audience console, and the hashtag for today's EcoCast will be automatically added to your post. All right, our last stop on this guided tour, be sure to check out the handouts tab for some awesome resources and takeaways from our speakers here today. We have an info pack collection, solution briefs, white papers, data sheets, free trials, ebooks, upcoming webinars, and more. So many great resources, so be sure to go explore. Now, if that wasn't enough fun, we also have some exciting prizes that we'll be giving away throughout today's EcoCast. I'm going to tell you a bit more about those later on, but a few quick reminders for you all. First, you do need to be here live in attendance at the EcoCast in order to qualify to win a prize, and we will follow up with all of you after we wrap. Now, all winners must submit an IRS Form W-9 to Actual Tech Media, and all winners must meet the Actual Tech Media prize terms and conditions. Now, if you don't know what those full T's and C's are, that's fine. We've got the full thing for you. Just head on over to that handouts tab, click in, scroll down to the bottom, and you'll find them waiting for you there. Now, the absolute most important thing to remember is that we love getting all your insightful questions during these live webinars. In fact, we love it so much that we actually have a special additional prize for all you inquisitive folks out there. So in today's EcoCast, we will be giving away a prize for the best question asked in each of our live sessions. Now, the expert speakers and teams will review all questions asked after we wrap the webinar, which means that even if your question does not get read out in a live session, there is still a chance to win. If you are a lucky winner here today and you would like to donate the value of your prize, we have several wonderful organizations that we partner with. So let us know when we follow up about your big win, and we'll get that rolling for you. Again, we are so happy to have you all here with us live at the EcoCast today, and we want to keep that good feeling going, so let's connect on social media. Reach out and connect with Actual Tech Media on Twitter and on LinkedIn. We have lots of great content, and we always want to hear from you. Now, if you're looking for more awesome content and resources right after we wrap the EcoCast today, be sure to subscribe to the Actual Tech Media channel on YouTube. Another fun way to win a prize and, hey, grow this awesome community is to refer an industry friend or a coworker to the Actual Tech Media webinar series. Now, you'll find a link to do that right in your handouts tab, and you will also be automatically redirected at the end of the webinar. And both you and your coworker or friend could win a prize, and we hold those drawings every month. So be sure to refer a friend, because it could quite literally be a win-win situation. Next, we have a cool opportunity for all the decision makers out there to get connected with new and emerging tech and innovative vendors. Here's how it works. All you need to do is click on the link in your handouts tab, fill out a quick application, and the Actual Tech crew will then match you with some vendors that we think you should probably be chatting with based on your needs. There will also be fun opportunities that you get to choose to join in, like surveys, test runs, new solutions, extended demos, and so on. You'll get some chances to win extra prizes, you'll chat with great people, and you'll learn about the hottest new trends in tech. So be sure to apply, or hey, send that link to a decision maker on your team. Now, I want to take a quick minute here to remind you all about one of my favorite resources, and that is ransomware.org. You can find out everything you need to know about ransomware, how to prepare, prevent, and recover. This site is jam-packed with information, helpful tips, checklists, strategic approaches, case studies, everything you need in one place. So wherever you are in your ransomware preparedness journey, there is something for you at ransomware.org. Go check it out and start exploring. All right, I have one more exciting resource I have to tell you about today, and that is the Gorilla Guide Book Club. It's going to give you access to free enterprise IT books authored by top industry experts, so you can stay up to date on trending enterprise technology. And yes, these books will work on your Kindle, your mobile device, and as I said, they are completely free. You can download these awesome resources at gorilla.guide, and there's a link for you in that handouts tab as well. All right, well, we have covered a lot of important things already, and I don't know about you all, but I am excited to dive in. So let's get going. Okay, my friends, it is time to jump into the good stuff here, because today we are continuing our IT best practice series, tools and techniques to bring hyper automation to your operations. I am so excited to get into this conversation for those two exact reasons. First, I love chatting about best practices. I think that is such a great way for us to share common experiences and lessons learned and kind of connect a little bit on some of those, maybe some of the pitfalls that we could avoid, but even more importantly, some of those awesome ways that we can leapfrog into success and help each other do that. The other reason I'm excited about today is because hyper automation is just cool, right? Like, how can we do more with less? How can we go as fast as possible without sacrificing quality? I think that's such an interesting conversation. That's all the best things, right? That gets into agility, that gets into flexibility, that gets into scalability, that gets into quality. Hyper awesome, hyper automation. That's our theme today. And today, to help us go through this exciting theme, we are going to be chatting with some innovative experts from leading companies, Strong DM and ID Agent. I cannot wait to get rolling in this conversation. I hope that you guys are all pumped up and ready to get started on the day today. And speaking of which, I'm going to move through just a few quick things. Dun, 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 dun. There's your mod squad. All right, so very quickly again, my name is Jess Steinbach. I'm a moderator here at Actual Tech Media. Now, my friends and fellow moderators are here with us today. Scott Becker will be around on live chat, and Keith Ward is waiting in the wings to interview our wonderful keynote speaker. I think he's going to come back and chat with some of our speakers later in the day to get some audience Q&A going. So we got lots of time to hang out with Keith, which is just good news for everybody. And today on the EcoCast, you could win one of three $300 Amazon gift cards. So if you're concerned about the qualifying terms and conditions for that, you know where to go. Head on back to that handouts tab, click in, scroll down. You'll find them waiting for you there. Otherwise, the most important thing is that you do need to be here live and present with us at the EcoCast. And as I always say, where else would you want to be, folks, other than here with us at the EcoCast? And speaking of awesome things at the EcoCast, let's get into our keynote. We are going to do a little bit of an interview chat. So Keith Ward is here with us. I think, Keith, you've planned to introduce our speakers, so I won't double up on that. But suffice to say, as you can see, we've got some exciting humans in the wings, and this will certainly be a great way to kick off our day. So I will step back and change the feed over to your camera and mic. Keith, take it away.
Hi, everyone. I'm Keith Ward, and thanks for joining us on this EcoCast about hyper automation best practices. Delighted you could be here with us, and I am delighted to be here with Dan Sullivan. Dan has been a keynoter with us before, and he is also a data architect. He's a data engineer, a cloud architect, and author on a wide range of IT topics. Now, his day job is as a lead solutions architect, so he just has a vast knowledge of these topic areas, and we are very happy to have you here with us today, Dan. Thanks for being here.
Oh, well, thank you. I really enjoy talking with you about these topics.
Absolutely. All right, well, let's dive right in as usual. Let's set the table first, Dan. How would you define hyperautomation, and how is it different from traditional automation?
Well, I think the big difference is the sort of the multi-phase or multi-step components that go into hyperautomation. Now, we think of automation like automating a particular task. But with hyperautomation, it's a whole series of tasks. They might have different dependencies. There might be, certain complex interactions that might happen. So we're dealing with it's, going from, say, doing one thing to doing a whole bunch of things that need to be choreographed. And so hyperautomation is more complicated, and but it's also has more rewards in the sense that we can automate, we can do more complex things. If we think of an analogy in like biology, a single celled organism can do only so much, but a multicellular organism can do so much more. It's much more complex, and that's what we find with hyperautomation.
Very interesting analogy. Yeah. Batch processes just aren't up to the task for the most part,
Yes,
are they
exactly.
anymore for these kinds of things, right? The
Yes,
tried and true
exactly.
love of admins, right?
Yes.
so so all right. What are some of things that adopters of hyperautomation should keep in mind that might not be obvious when they first start out?
Well, I think first and foremost that we are going from something, we have what is something that is basically a quantitative difference. We're automating more tasks, but there is a qualitative change that we're encountering as well. Because in back in the day when we do like batch jobs, like we could check in the morning and see if a batch job ran, see, and pretty quickly understand what went wrong if something didn't work. With hyperautomation, now there are many more moving parts and there are many more interactions, and things can break in new and sort of innovative ways that we might not anticipate. So with hyperautomation, we need much more kind of awareness about our needs with around observability and understanding the state of this system. And so I think what we can do is, sometimes learn from practices like DevOps or site reliability engineering, where we have the sense that we have automated a lot of things, and we have to make sure that they're actually running as we expect, because things fail. Components break, software has bugs. We run out of disk space still. I mean, it's a problem that's plagued us, since probably the start of IT. So some problems don't go away, and they're still with us. And some of these are more nuanced problems that have to do with detecting issues in the different components and processes, because hyperautomation really is about automating fairly complex processes. And so there's more opportunity for things to go wrong. We just have to watch for that.
I like that kind of new spin on the old phrase of new and innovative ways. In this case, new and innovative ways that things break, and that's
Yes.
exactly right. We're going to be seeing things we haven't seen before, right? I mean, that's just kind of the nature of doing these kinds of different things, especially as you say, with so many different moving parts. Dan, so this particular EcoCast is about best practices for implementing hyperautomation. So, from your perspective, why don't you give us some of what you consider these best practices?
Well, I think some key best practices are, as I mentioned, around observability. So we want to be able to monitor the state of the hyperautomation system. Now, for that, we have to understand, what are sort of our key components? What are our objectives? So we need to understand what our key performance indicators and metrics are, so that we can understand if there's a problem, whether it's we're not getting the throughput that we need, or something we're not producing output that we expect to be producing output. And we want to have multiple indicators, because oftentimes in hyperautomation, we're working with pipelines and workflows that have multiple branching points. So we need to monitor like each of the branching points and each key point where we're producing an output that might be an input to another step. So we have to watch for that. Hyperautomation is also bringing in new tools like AI and machine learning techniques. And what we do know about AI and ML is that oftentimes when we have really well developed models, they work really well in many cases, but there's always going to be edge cases. So at some point, we have to understand, when does a human have to get into the loop and begin to resolve an issue. So I think another important best practice is assume that not everything will go through the pipeline safely. And it's not because the pipeline fails for technical reasons, but there is some data, some scenario that's outside what we anticipate. And we're going to need a human to respond, or some mechanism for responding to these outliers that come through. I'd say those are probably the main things that we want to focus on is just observing, preparing for things that are going to go wrong, and then understanding exactly what you want to measure. Like, what is the outcome you're hoping for, and how are you going to measure the fact that you're getting that? Because one of the things with hyperautomation, of course, you're accelerating things. So you might scale up. What might have been a manual process that took a certain number of people, maybe in a call center, to handle calls. Many of those calls are now being automated or handled in automated ways. Some percentage of those are not going to go well, and they're going to need intervention. So you're going to need to understand, how do you detect those points? Because again, it's a little bit like finding a needle in a haystack, and your automation process will get better and better and better as the more you learn and the more you correct, say, like bugs in the software. But we still have to anticipate for those sort of problematic outliers. And so really we need to understand right from the beginning, how are we going to identify those outliers? And I'd say another best practice kind of follows from what I just sort of assumed, which is there's this iterative development. We're not going to get it right the first time we try it. And so we're going to keep learning. Again, taking from software engineering and agile development methodologies, it's much better to roll out a small new feature, test it, see how it works, see how it integrates, and then build on that, rather than trying to, build a very large, complete monolith and have kind of a big bang release that then, doesn't work as we expect.
Absolutely. Dan, as we can tell just from this brief discussion, hyperautomation is a huge topic. It is really complex, and I really appreciate you taking the time to untangle some of it for us. I think that's going to continue throughout this event today. So I really appreciate you giving us an overview and an introduction to what hyperautomation best practices look like, and how hyperautomation is really impacting all of IT right now. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you, Keith. It was great to talk with you again.
I love when we get to start our days with those kinds of interview chats. So Keith and Dan, thank you so much for that conversation and giving us a little bit of insight into what is obviously a very large topic, and we have lots more to cover today. So we're going to get rolling with our EcoCast very shortly here, but I do want to point out that we have a poll question up on the screen for you today. Now, if you've been to an EcoCast before, you know that this is not the only time I'm going to ask you a poll question, so consider this your warm-up round. What we're looking for is, what's your time frame? What do you have in mind? Are you thinking short-term, long-term? When you're thinking about potentially integrating hyperautomation into your organization, are you thinking weeks, days, months, years, or I have no sweet clue, Jess? That's why I'm here, and all of those answers are just fine. No judgment here. And in fact, I actually kind of like the not sures, because that means that you are in that fun research phase where everything is just sort of exciting and open, and maybe you'll find something that you want to bring in tomorrow, and maybe you'll find something that you want to bring in a year or two, and that's pretty cool. So no wrong answers. Click wherever you like. Let us know. This just helps us get an idea of what kind of information we can send your way in terms of the timelines that you're thinking, and make sure that we keep, getting you EcoCasts when you need them. All right, so I'm going to keep things moving right along, because speaking of information you need, boy, do we have some cool stuff coming at you. And we are going to kick off the EcoCast today with a dynamic duo here with us from Strong DM. I'm so excited to introduce you all to Michaeline Todd, CMO at Strong DM, and John Martinez, Dynamic Access Management Evangelist, also at Strong DM. They have a great chat lined up for us. Now, let's see. I think, Michaeline, you're going to kick things off for us, so I am going to hand things right on over to you. Take it away.
Glad to be here talking to you guys today about how to bring more automation or hyperautomation to the access management and auditing process. Before we get started, kind of did a quick informal survey yesterday. So on a scale of 1 to 10, we asked a bunch of IT professionals, how much do you enjoy onboarding and offboarding users? And then the second question, how much do you enjoy access audits? And not too surprising, not a lot of joy coming from that process of onboarding and offboarding users. And definitely got skull and crossbones on the access audit piece. So we're going to talk today about how we can maybe make it a little bit more of an enjoyable process, and at the very least, bring some automation so that it's not as painful. So hi there, I'm Michaeline Todd, and I'm the CMO at StrongDM. So as you're starting to think about how you automate or how you should automate access controls and access management for your organization, I've got a couple of tips to kind of keep in mind. First and foremost is you want to make sure that you are automating that whole access lifecycle. So from the minute somebody comes in the door and you need to start onboarding them all the way until they're offboarded, you need to have all those steps in between automated. And what I mean by that is, as people are changing jobs or changing roles within the organization, working on different projects, you want to make sure that that the things that they have access to is also changing during that time. Because the last thing you want is somebody who's been around for 2 years and maybe has worked on 10 different projects to now all of a sudden have access to a bunch of databases, a bunch of servers and systems that they just don't need access to, and you've got access grants that are kind of sitting there going stale. The next thing is least privilege and zero standing privilege. And I can remember, starting to learn about, cloud 10 years ago, and it was just sort of hammered into us that, everything you need to focus on least privilege and make sure that folks didn't have access to more than what they really needed. But the reality is that actually implementing least privilege when you don't have a very simple automated process is really challenging, especially because you've got so many resources that are coming online, and maybe those roles are just automatically, gaining access to new resources that kind of are part of that role definition. And so I think oftentimes we see that just while companies try or attempt to do least privilege, they're not quite getting it really right. And so I'm really excited about this notion of zero standing privilege. And zero standing privilege, I think, is kind of coming out of zero trust, but really focused on saying, hey, let's make it that, all users across the board have no standing privileges whatsoever until they need it, at which point they go and make a just-in-time access request. They get access to the resources they need. And then as soon as those sessions are closed out, the privileges are gone. The sessions, the grant is kind of poofed. So let's look at what it means to go from standing access to just-in-time access. So what you see on the left-hand side, so you can imagine if you've got a DBA who has standing access to maybe 20 databases, right? So 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, that access is just out there. And so for all that time, in this case, it would be 3,360 hours per week that these access grants are out there, potentially vulnerable to be breached. If instead you move to just-in-time access, meaning, the person comes in at 8 o'clock in the morning, they need to go run some query against a database. They make the automated request to get access. They get the access, go in, kind of complete their job, shut it down. You could see where you kind of move to this scenario then where, maybe at most there's only 40 hours of a week of risk, because outside of the time that they're asking for that just-in-time access and that grant exists, like there are no credentials out there. There's no access grant or no permissions out there that anybody could take advantage of. That's almost a 99% reduction in risk. And so if you can imagine, and if you can do this for those users, if you do that across the board, it's a huge de-risking of your organization and your resources. So next up, the next requirement, complete coverage. And, what we see is, we talk to a lot of clients where they say, hey, we've automated access controls or automated access grants for like the most important stuff, but it's just too complicated to go do this for everything in our stack. Or the tools that we're using only help us out with cloud resources or only help us out with Windows resources. And this definitely poses a big problem. And so you want to make sure that you actually have complete coverage across your entire stack. And I would say no exceptions whatsoever, right? You wouldn't go and leave for vacation, lock your front door and leave your back door and all your windows open. Like, no, you lock all this stuff down because you want to make sure that nobody can get into any entry into your home. And I think the same thing is true then for your tech stack as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Just because it's a developer environment, a staging environment, doesn't mean that you shouldn't have the same level of control and hygiene that you have in production, right? We've seen time and time again over our history, Michaeline, where those dev environments are the ones that are getting attacked, and that's where the problems are coming from. Especially more egregious when you don't know if your developers are, for ease of use, it might be innocent, right? And let me copy a little bit of more realistic data sets in here that may or may not have customer data or PII or something more sensitive like that. And, just so I can run a better test in my dev environment, and all of a sudden that environment's gotten attacked and, access is there for somebody who shouldn't, and your customer information leaked, right? That's a bad thing to happen.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Yep, connect the dots, right?
Yeah, no, that's a great point, right? So I think oftentimes we think about really locking down that access to those crown jewels, but the reality is that it's those dev environments that also pose a huge threat. Last and not least, John, you started hinting at ease of use, and this is really important and something that we feel really strongly about at Strong DM. When you think about ease of use, you have to make sure that whatever process you start building out, that it doesn't negatively disrupt the workflow for developers, for IAM professionals, or for security teams. You can disrupt the workflow by making it better. That's always good. But yeah.
I was just going to dispel the notion that it means that it's frictionless, right? I mean, a little bit of friction is good, right? Because you do want to challenge that access request, right? If it's for something that's a very sensitive workload, or there's a compliance aspect to that workload, right? But you definitely don't want to be in the situation that I described earlier, right? Where the developer, you want to change the thinking anyway, where the developer, the Kubernetes admin or whoever, right, needs access to do their job, but they want to hoard a credential because if I have to open up an IT ticket, that's going to take 3 days, right? So you definitely want to, all of the things we just talked about, the just-in-time access, all of that, deep level security posture that we want to keep doesn't mean, that we have to have a horrible experience for our users, right?
Yeah. Or even worse, if you're tired of waiting for somebody to get around to actually giving you a grant, you just slack your buddy or lean over to the next cubicle and ask if you could just use their credentials. And now you actually don't know who did what in your environments, right?
Yep.
So that's definitely not a good thing. So ease of use, super important. And so, I think, this kind of complex spaghetti crazy-ness is something that I think is very believable. Hopefully you guys all think that as well. But we talk to organizations all the time where the pathways that we're sort of expecting end users to navigate to go from their desktop to a certain VPN to get to a jump host or Bastion hosts before they go jump over into the cloud, and then they have to figure out what role do they assume in order to get access to the thing that's there. Super complicated. And you can imagine new people coming into your organization or even new people joining a team and trying to figure out, okay, how do I connect to that thing, that database? Super complicated, right? And slows people down and just kind of gives them a really bad experience working in your organization. And of course, kind of thinking about the end user here, but for the admins, right, they're also dealing with all of this craziness, all of this complexity. And when it comes time to do audits or investigations, or just to even answer those questions for those end users, how do you get from A to B? it's really confusing and just made to be overly cumbersome, right? And so trying to keep the bad guys out shouldn't also mean that you're also making it so complicated for your internal users that they themselves actually can't get their job done easily. So what we've done and what John's going to show you in a minute is how at StrongDM we've sort of reimagined privilege access so that both end users and administrators and auditors can actually regain control over what's actually happening in those organizations, or sorry, across all of your infrastructure. And so what you're going to see is, we make it very simple so that the end user has their own personalized directory of things that they have access to. And they don't have to worry about any of that complexity that's happening behind the scenes to make sure that they have a secure and protected pathway to go from their desktop over into that resource, whether it's in the cloud or in the data center. They can also, what John's also going to show you is how easy it is for people to kick off that workflow to request just-in-time access. So you can actually, get the access that you need quickly, whether it's happens automatically or whether it requires some additional approvals. As well, then for the admins, right? They have access to like complete visibility and observability. They can see every keystroke that's taking place during those sessions. They can audit the access grants as well as audit kind of what actions people are taking. All of this helps to ensure that you now get better control of your better control over what's actually happening. You've got better security and then also better compliance. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to John so he can show you a demo.
All right, great points. We're going to reinforce a lot of what Michaeline and I were talking about a little bit earlier with a quick demo on StrongDM's capabilities along those lines. So we have a system here. This is a client system. It could be a developer system, etc. And a user, Emilio Watkins, is logged in and has logged into the StrongDM UI here, the application. So as you can see, Emilio's logged in, has no access to anything yet. We're going to walk through Emilio requesting access to a resource. In this case, we're going to request access to a database. This is a MySQL database. I'm going to jump in over to Slack to show that it's as easy as using the native tools that I use every day. So I'm over here as Emilio. I'm going into the Slack integration that we have. There's an actual bot that is running on my Slack organization. And I'm going to type in the SDM command. And SDM is going to give me visibility into a few things, but mostly I want to see what's available to me. So Emilio needs access to a MySQL database. So I'm going to go look at the catalog. And here we go. Okay, I just need read-only access to the database so that I can validate some tables. So I'm going to go request access to that database. The default 1 hour is okay for me. I should be done by then. But as an admin, and I'll show in a little while that an admin can absolutely revoke access before then. But I'm going to go request an hour. I spoke a little bit earlier about challenging access requests, and this is a required field that I need to go and fill out, and that's the reason. Why do I need access? So validate beta. And it's going to go ahead and run through another one of our features, and this is actually the dynamic access management, the DAM part of what we do. It's been granted to me, and what happened in the background is it ran through one of our dynamic access workflows that we have, and it looked at my request and approved it. So now we should go back into the SDM app, and we should see that we have access to the database. All right. So the next thing I need to do is now connect to the database. I'm connected. I'm going to go ahead and open up a database client. Here I choose, I I choose Beekeeper. So I have the connection already saved. I'm going to go ahead and go right into the database. And as you can see, I connected right into the database. And I'm going to run this query here so I could see what's in the strong DM table. And there it is. I've got one field there. What I'm going to do now is that I'm going to show the ability for us to terminate a session in real time. We just want to make sure that we are able to disconnect that person from running or having access to that particular database. So I'm going to loop over here, and I have the database query looping here. I'm going to go into, let me refresh the access request. So here's the access request here, the currently approved access. It's active today until 2/16, as you saw, but keep an eye over here on the database client. I'm going to go ahead and revoke access, and it's going to tell me, yeah, go ahead and do it. I don't want that person to be running that query anymore, and right away, immediate disconnect. All right, so yeah, right. I mean, it's absolutely. And from Emilio's perspective, Emilio used the development tools that he normally runs. There's no special clients to run on Emilio's part, right? So all the tools that he loves to use, he has access to. All right, so poor Emilio got cut off from the database access, but now let's go over into Kubernetes. So let's go back to Slack, and let's go look at that catalog again. Emilio needs to access some commands on the EKS cluster that's running in AWS. So let's go look at the catalog. And let's see, there's no EKS there. There are some AWS accounts there, as you can see, right? So that points to our ability to have a wide list of resource types available to us. And we'll get into that in a little bit. Oh, there it is. This is what I need. I need EKS these credentials. I'm going to go ahead and request access again. Same thing, right? I need to pick a time frame. I need to write a reason for it. Submit. And I've been granted access into that Kubernetes cluster, the EKS cluster. All right, so now I'm here in my PowerShell environment. I'm going to run the kubectl CLI, and I need to update my Kubernetes config to be able to use that particular port. But let me show you real quick before, just to double check. Yep, I do have access now to that EKS lease credentials resource. You saw before, the database access has now been removed, right? So it's gone. Again, in reinforcing that just-in-time access requirement that we have in our company, right? We no longer have standing privileges. Only when I need it for however long I need it for. So I'm going to update the config so that kubectl can run its commands just happily. All right, I'm good to go there. And let's actually run the kubectl command. So I'm going to go ahead and list all the services that I have available to me. And there it is. I'm able to now connect to that Kubernetes cluster in the backend. So again, native tooling. It's easy for me as a developer to use the things that I need access, that I need to use to access those resources. And I'm going to go back here. I can see that the credentials are there. I'm just going to leave them running. They're going to expire in an hour anyway, so I'm okay with that. So let's take a look at a couple of other things. I've showed you how to terminate access to a resource. And now we're going to take a look at, well, what did Emilio actually do? You're an admin, you're not actually looking on Emilio's screen to see what he's got running there. So I'm going to go into logs here. I'm going to go take a look at, let's go take a look at queries. All right. There's exactly it, right? It's great, right? It's might seem like magic, but it's not magic. I can see all of the queries that Emilio ran on that database. There's Emilio. There's the queries, even to when I did the sleep so that I can disconnect. It's all there. Same thing with Kubernetes. I can go take a look at, hey, Emilio ran kubectl get services. So it's all there. It's all visible to me. And it's not just that. There's certain resource types where I can actually go take a look and I can replay an entire session, and like for SSH and RDP. Same thing for all the different resource types that we support, cloud, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, now let's go and take a look at how easy it is to set up a workflow. We're going to go into workflows. We're going to go in here. We can see all the workflows that we have set up today. I'm going to go in here and say add workflow. I'm going to name it something. And it was very simple to go create. I'm going to look at the different roles that are available to me. Let's go and attach this AE role, but by default, I have to attach a role. Roles have a direct correlation to the resources that have been set up and are available to that role. And I'm going to assign the AE role, and I'm going to make it so that it's an automatic workflow here, so that it's automatically approved. But I can actually also route that approval manually to an admin, right? So in case it's like very sensitive data or a very, very sensitive workflow that I don't need to. And I can assign a dynamic rule to that workflow. And I can say, let's go in Aurora MySQL. There's 0 there. But you can restrict it to a specific resource type. You can say any resource type of a particular tag. So that's enforcing the actual dynamic aspect of our workflows.
So as new things come in that have that same tag, then they would also be added to that workflow request.
Absolutely. We automatically populate the tag, and it tells me how many resources I have available in that particular tag. And that's really it. We save it, and it's created, we enable it, and the workflow is now enabled. That's how easy it is to have dynamic access management in StrongDM. So I mentioned earlier that it looks like magic. It's really not magic. Here's our high-level architecture of how all of this works. We were looking at a workstation where I've got the StrongDM client installed. I've got all my native developer tools installed there that I'm using. We log in, initialize our sessions. You saw that I connected to both the database and a Kubernetes cluster. And all of that request gets sent to the StrongDM control plane, which then in turn talks to a locally installed gateway, where all of that traffic is completely encrypted, completely secured. And how do we know what the credentials are for that particular resource? We do have integrations with Bring Your Vault of Choice. Those are some of the vaults that we support. And that's how we're able to broker the connection between the client, between the vault where your secrets are stored, your credentials are stored, your API keys are stored, and the actual resource on the back end. At no point during that session that you just saw, or those couple of sessions that you just saw, did I have access to any credentials. So 0 credential sharing at all to Emilio. So not only is it, yes, it's magic. Not only did Emilio get access to the resources that he needed for the time he needed, and on top of that, from a security perspective, so that's the easy part. That's the ease of use part. From the security perspective, he never saw a credential, and we were able to audit his access completely.
That's great. StrongDM also has a vault that's native to the product as well, but we know that everybody's got, all their vaults of choice. And so we want to make sure that we're supporting that for you. So just to wrap up, as you're thinking about automating access management, just a couple of things to think about. You want to make sure that you're tying your access to your IDP so that as new people come in, right, their access automatically starts getting provisioned. As they leave the company, all of that automatically gets turned off. You also want to make sure that you're managing that access throughout that whole life cycle, so that you're building automation so that as people are changing roles, that their access grants are also changing. Although ideally, I guess if you move to zero standing privilege, you don't have to worry about that so much. Except of course, as the roles changed, maybe the automated approvals would change as they're making requests. Again, you want to make it so that requesting access or being able to like even see what your catalog of resources are, that also is really easy and is actually embedded in the things that people are using day in and day out. So whatever's, chat ops tools you're using, that's super simple. And then for the admins, you want to make sure that there's complete visibility of all those actions. The last thing you want to do is be trolling through logs to try to do an investigation and figure out who did what. You want this to be like super drop dead simple. And then finally, adding when new resources get added, right? You got like new clusters coming online or new databases, new servers. You want to make sure that, adding all those resources, or heck, even new resource types, doesn't require a professional services, engagement in order to get those pulled in to be managed by your access management system. That also needs to be automated and super simple, just to ensure that you are able to secure everything that's actually in your environment. And then finally, if you're interested in getting started, there's a link to start up a free trial, and you can be up and running in just minutes. So thank you very much, and we look forward to seeing you again.
What a great presentation. Thank you both so much for starting our EcoCast out on such a great note and giving us such great info and insight. I know there's a lot of questions coming in, and I do want to let you all know that we decided to go a bit long on the demo, which means that we're going to have to wrap up our Q&A and switch that to live chat and also email follow-up. So you will get some answers back. Jeffrey, I was laughing because Jeffrey wrote in and said, this is going to make auditing way less of a pain. And I read it as this is going to make adulting way less of a pain. And I thought, yeah, this could really help with some good adulting. So Jeffrey, I'm with you. Auditing and adulting, all solved by StrongDM. Please do take some time right now and click on that handouts tab. Make sure you've clicked and opened the StrongDM link. You can actually get started with a free trial. So as we all know, this is a great way to find out if a solution is going to be a good fit for you, is really getting your hands in the sandbox and playing a little bit. So if you're concerned about auditing or adulting, click on that free link and go check that out. I'm also going to point out that we've got that poll up on the screen for all of you here. And what we want to do is get a little bit of feedback from you on what additional resources would be helpful. Obviously, there's lots that we covered, and there's a lot of great information here, and it's just not all going to stick. So the best way to make sure that you can kind of jog that information and reach back to that insight a little bit later on in your day, in your week, and next month, whenever you're kind of revisiting this, is to make sure that you've got these handouts at your fingertips. So what we do is have you click on the poll, we pass that on to StrongDM, and then they will only send you the information that you're asking for. So they'll send you exactly what you're looking for. And that's a great way to make sure that you can really get the most out of these sessions, is through these follow-ups. So click on the handouts, click on the poll, let StrongDM know how they can follow up with you after we wrap here. All right. Well, again, thank you so much to Michaeline and John for that awesome presentation. Lots of great insight. And we are not done with the fun giveaways yet, because it's time for our very first prize. We are giving away, again, a reminder, a $300 Amazon gift card. And that is going to our very first lucky winner, Volts Tribergs of Minnesota. That's such a great Minnesotan name, Volts. Volts Tribergs of Minnesota, you have won a $300 Amazon gift card. I dig it. We will follow up with you after we wrap, so stay tuned for that. And don't forget that there's still that best question gift card coming at you from each session. So lots of great questions coming in. Keep them rolling in, even if we don't have time to stop for a live Q&A, which I know that we're going to leave some time at the end of our next session, so you'll get that chance. But again, even if it's through live chat or email follow-up, you're still entered to win. So keep those questions coming in, because we're reviewing all of them after we wrap. All right. Well, we are going to keep things rolling. Peter likes your name too, Volts, right? It's a great name. Good Viking name. Thanks for the high five on that, Peter. All right, well, let's keep things moving right along because we have another awesome session lined up for all of you. As you can see, the good times are rolling here on the EcoCast. We have a familiar face, and that is, of course, the one and only Miles Walker, Channel Development Manager at ID Agent. If you've heard Miles speak before, you know it is always a fun and informative time. Miles, I know you've got lots lined up for us on the EcoCast today, and I believe Keith is waiting in the wings to hop in and chat with you a little bit, take some audience questions when you wrap up your presentation. So lots to do. I will step back and hand things on over to you. Take it away, Miles.
All right, super excited to be here today. I got to keep it to around 20 minutes, so I've got my timer going, so that should help. But here I'm talking about ID Agent, a Kaseya company, the set it and forget it security awareness training. Got a lot to cover today. Got an offer at the end, so definitely stick around to the very end because you want to see that offer. Hopefully it's relevant to you. But let's talk about what we're going to talk about. That's the agenda here. So the importance of security awareness training. Then we're going to dive into a quick product overview. Then I'm going to look at automation with Bullfish ID and some other features of Bullfish ID as well. So let's get going. The importance of security awareness training. This one is something that I always harp on. I talk all around North America, all around the Asian markets as well, whether that's Australia or into Southeast Asia. And what I talk about is the importance of security awareness training and, of course, phishing simulation. I want to start you off with a quote or a stat that'll definitely make you wonder. If you have your phone on you, a great stat to take a picture of. Human-related causes are responsible for 90% of cybersecurity breaches. So when I talk, whether it's in Sydney, whether I was recently in New York, I was in Florida this past week, I was speaking in Banff, Alberta recently, I'm off to Portland next week. A lot of what I talk about is security breaches, cybersecurity in general, phishing attacks. And I always say you can have the biggest war chest imaginable. You can have all the money, you can have all the solutions, but if your team isn't actually trained up, it doesn't matter because 90% of cybersecurity breaches have some type of human element. So maybe that's the human clicking on a link or maybe giving their information where they shouldn't. And that's what it comes down to. You need to be trained. You need to have those skills in place. I often say you won't become a better basketball player if you don't shoot free throws. You won't become stronger if you're not working out. And you won't become better at improving your cyber hygiene if you're not getting those reps in and seeing those emails, those sophisticated phishing attacks. 1 in 3 employees are likely to click links in phishing emails. This is scary. It used to be that you were getting these emails with bad spelling, bad grammar. Often a West African dictator was asking for some money. And that's not the case. Nowadays, these attacks are smarter, they're sophisticated, and they've figured out that people weren't clicking on those emails as much, and they're figuring out ways to get people, to fool people, really. 1 in 8 are likely to share information requested in a phishing email. That's why security awareness training is so essential. Also why phishing simulation is so essential for every business. And when I say so essential, it used to be large-scale businesses that were just doing security awareness training. Now, this was the first year ever that small and medium-sized businesses are getting hit more than large-scale businesses. And people say, Miles, why is that? And it's simple. Large-scale businesses have solutions in place. They have money in place. They've also been doing security awareness training for not just months, but for years. Small and medium-sized businesses, they're kind of still in that hope and pray method where they think, well, why would a cyber criminal want my information? Why would they want my data? 4.9 million is the average cost of a data breach that starts with a phishing attack. So I don't know about you, but most businesses don't have $5 million burning a hole in their company pockets. But this is the type of attack we're seeing, and this has been a rise of about 15 to 20% since this time last year. I always like to throw in a couple of movie images here, some of my favorites, Office Space right here. So doing security awareness training and phishing simulation is no longer optional. Hopefully you've gauged that from those first few slides, but let's dive right into the product, a little bit about the product itself and how it helps. Often, like I said, I'm up on stage, I'm talking about security awareness, I'm talking about cybersecurity, and I often get people to say, hey, stand up if you want to raise your cyber hygiene by 70%. And that's where number one clicks in. Reduces risk of experience of a cyber attack by up to 70%. So if you were given something that can improve your cyber hygiene by 70%, would you do it? And hopefully everybody goes, yes, I want to improve my cyber hygiene. It's amazing though, how many people are still not doing security awareness training. Obviously reducing the cost of phishing, like productivity and incident response, by more than 50%. I mentioned it earlier. If you get those reps in, if you get to practice and see what these phishing emails are like, you're going to be less likely to click or give information. And lastly, helping satisfy cyber insurance and compliance requirements. It used to be if you were breathing, you would be able to get cyber insurance. It was kind of like car insurance. Everybody would get it, no problem at all. Well, after these past couple of years with COVID, you know what? Cyber insurance providers are not paying out everybody. They're making you check a whole bunch of boxes. Recently, I was at an event and a partner showed up and they had a cyber insurance policy with 103 pages. And we really laughed because we're like, this is getting so intense now. So nowadays, the just showing up to get cyber insurance is not how it works. Around 97% of employees are unable to spot a sophisticated phishing email without training. That's why phishing training or phishing simulation is so essential. So let's dive into ID Agent, a quick product overview. Here's what the solution actually looks like. It's clean, it's crisp, it's easy to use. When you're bringing on a new solution, you want to make sure it's going to be low stress for your team, and we make things easy to read. The reports are easy, and this is what it looks like. So, reducing cyber risk caused by human error. At the end of the day, that's our main goal here at Bullfish. We're super proud of winning the Cybersecurity Excellence Award in 2022. And what we're doing, we're educating and we're empowering employees to spot and stop phishing threats. That's our main goal. And obviously, following cybersecurity best practices is something that we're really, really proud of that we do with our solution. Automate training campaigns and reporting for effortless set it and forget it training. We want to automate as much as we can. And we want to get you those results so you can use them to obviously do more training or find who are the bad apples in the business. Satisfy requirements for cyber liability insurance. I just talked about this briefly. This year, it's going to be harder to get cyber insurance. Next year, it's going to be even harder. And this is an example of one solution, one product that you're probably going to need to show that you're doing security awareness training if you want to have cyber insurance in place. And of course, compliance is something we're hearing more and more about this year. We're definitely going to be hearing it more and more next year. You need to maintain compliance with industry regulations and avoid those high fees for non-compliance. And by conducting ongoing security awareness training, you'll be able to do that. All right, so automation is obviously the name of the game. Everybody who brings on a new solution these days wants to automate, and automated features make it easier for organizations, especially with small IT teams and limited budgets. That's why a lot of small and medium-sized businesses haven't had security awareness training. So we like to say, with our solution, it's a very, very big push on automation, and you're going to have that same quality security training programs and phishing simulations that other big companies use. So when we're talking about automation, we automate organization group and user creation via directory sync with Microsoft Active Directory, Google, or IT Glue. IT Glue is one of our sister companies. We obviously like to mention that our products work really, really well together with all different products, but especially with our sister companies like IT Glue, like a company that does anti-phishing like Graphis. And obviously, integrations with Microsoft and Google are some of the major integrations that we have with Bullfish and ID Agent. So automated campaign setup. Love this image right here. Painless campaign setup. So when you're bringing on a new solution, you want to make sure you can get up and running quickly. You can get up and running within a couple hours. No need for manual adjustments. That's a big one. You don't have to manage or do a training program. And that is something that is so key. You can pre-schedule campaigns. So if you want to book campaigns for every month or every other month, you can do that. And you can do this up to 1 year in advance and have them run automatically. So it's automated. Stagger email delivery timing so employees can't alert each other. That's a big one. Most employees used to get these phishing simulations at the start of the month. We say, you know what, stagger that. So it's not always going to be at the start of the month. You can run different campaigns for different groups. For example, if you just want to focus on HR, or you just want to focus on the C-suite, or you just want to focus on new hires, you can do that. And of course, it's easy to duplicate and edit campaigns to avoid starting from scratch. So not a lot of time working on the actual campaign. Love to throw in quotes from some of our partners here. It's very little work. I feel like it's doing automatically as I sleep. One of the things I love most about Bullfish ID is I don't have to babysit the product. That's big. We know IT teams are completely stretched, and to add a solution that's going to take a lot of hours away from that team is big. And this is something that we take a lot of pride in. Obviously, you know, the solution itself, you can get up and running quickly and it won't take a lot of time. So automated user additions, new hires are automatically added to the in-progress campaigns without any manual intervention. This one is big. We say here at ID Agent that new hires are where you need to start. You need to start doing security awareness training right away. It's not 2 weeks or a month or 2 months down the line. It has to be right away. I'm not going to say it has to be day one, but it's got to be in that first week. And no need to create new campaigns for new employees. That's a big selling point for us. Automated reporting. This is something that's also very important. You know, whether you want to do training or phishing simulation, you can do frequency, weekly, monthly, or quarterly, as you can see down there in the red box. You can schedule those reports for regular distribution, and that is to make sure that the tracking is better. Management knows what's going on with the progress. You can even set campaigns to know, you know, halfway through the month, how many people have actually done their phishing simulation or security awareness training. And then you can actually reach out to them. The value of training is demonstrated to stakeholders. At the end of the day, everyone has someone they're reporting to, and you need to make sure that the reason they're taking on a new solution is to make sure it works and that people are held accountable. And lastly, save substantial time that would otherwise be spent on manual report management tasks. So we automate all that for you. Drop a Fish. This is in partner with one of our sister companies called Graphis. Graphis is one of the most awarded anti-phishing solutions. And the Graphis API allows Bullfish to drop phishing and training emails directly into end users' inbox. And why this is good. In the past, you know, you were maybe sending it through the internet, and this system is so much better. So it won't be blocked. If people have some type of anti-phishing solution, often those emails get blocked or they get alerted with some type of banner, and that doesn't happen with us. So that's one of our sister products, Graphis. You know, you eliminate the need for domain or IP whitelisting, a big thing, obviously saving time, and ensures 100% campaign deliverability to those end users. And of course, one of the big things, it saves you time. It speeds up campaign deployment time. Another quote, I promise this is not the Emma Stone actress who you probably all follow and know, or maybe because, you know what, Hollywood is under a little bit of, what would I say, some issues right now. They're at strike, but I promise you Emma Stone is a real person, and she uses the Drop a Fish. So Drop a Fish transforms a very manual setup process that takes a lot of technician time into a no-think, no-touch task that runs automatically and saves our team a lot of overhead. I love to hear this. Emma, thanks so much, and thanks for giving your 2 cents. Other features. So we obviously have a rich set of phishing simulations. So we have those pre-made phishing kits that you can use. And you get the phishing campaigns up and running within minutes. I talked about that earlier. Here's an example on the right-hand side. We've got Airbnb. We've got Adobe right there. We have the ability to customize those phishing kits that will align with the needs of the business and threats it faces. So, for example, if you're accounting or a law firm or IT, we have those customized phishing kits that are based towards that industry. New kits are added regularly to keep up with the latest threats. And that is so key. A lot of security awareness training programs, they're stagnant. They're not robust. And that is the complete opposite of us. And we're adding new training videos and quizzes regularly. So maybe it's compliance that you want to focus on, or maybe security awareness, whether it's, you know, something specific like ransomware, brand impersonation. Nation state cybercrimes are now hitting all different facets of all different types of industries. It used to be, you know, the USA versus Russia. Nowadays, those nation state attacks are hitting all different facets. When I say facets, they're hitting different parts of the supply chain. So everyone is potentially a victim. Whether it's COVID-19 scams, we're seeing less and less of those, but those were, huge during, the heart of the COVID pandemic. Government spoofing is one that we're constantly seeing, especially around tax season. So we have those training programs available depending on which ones you want to use. Customization options. This is one thing that really sets us apart with other security awareness training platforms. The phishing campaign customization. So we can customize those phishing campaigns for the needs of your organization. I talked about that a little bit earlier. But you can also create your own phishing emails from a blank template to feature threats specific to your sector or your country, whether you're in the US or Canada or maybe in Europe. Maybe there's something that's so relevant towards you that you can customize that phishing email. And a bonus, deliver your own training content. You can create and upload your own training content. So maybe new employee training or mandatory safety training, quarterly training, whatever that may be. You can upload that yourself and use it on our platform to deliver it to the end user. Here's the training portal. So the employee experience is second to none. It's personalized to each end user. You can see it there. Once again, I mentioned it's clean, it's crisp, it's easy to use. User can log in at their convenience to see, assigned trainings, what they have to do, watch video courses, and take quizzes to make sure that cyber resiliency is there. And of course, completed, open, and expired courses are displayed, so you know what you're doing and what you have to do in the near future. You can configure custom domain and improve training deliverability. So Bullfish ID allows you to use your own domain or your customer's domain. That's something that's super unique to us. And so then we can deliver those security awareness training phishing simulation emails. Users will be less likely to ignore, delete, or mark training emails as spam because the email will come from a domain they recognize and trust. We're not out there trying to trick everybody, but we are trying to make it hard for them to realize, what they're seeing is real or fake, because we would always rather that an employee fails with us than from an actual cyber criminal trying to phish someone or attack a business. That one's really important. All right. So of course, like I mentioned, we have an offer for you. This is exclusive to this webinar here. So 20% off, 1 month free, and that's on Bullfish ID security awareness training and phishing simulation. It's an incredible offer. We would love you to book a demo and see, if this solution is right for you. With something like ID Agent, a Bullfish ID security awareness training and phishing simulation is something that I feel most companies are going to have in the next 2 to 3 years. There's about 50% of the industry that's not currently doing security awareness training and phishing simulation, and that will change going forward. Whether it is doing those simulations and getting those reps under your belt, this is something that every business needs to at least start looking at if they're not looking at it now. And if they have a current solution in place, is it doing all the things they want? Can they customize things like I mentioned earlier? That's something definitely to look at. Lastly, I would love to connect with you. Like I said, I travel all around North America, Europe, as well as the APAC region, talking about security awareness, talking about phishing, talking about cyber crimes. And I don't use my LinkedIn as a selling tool. I use it as an awareness and information tool. So if you get your phone, you can scan that QR code and you can connect up with me right away. I'd love to connect with you. I post content every week, usually video related, usually 1 to 2 minutes on, emerging threats and what's going on in our IT space. That's it from me. I know there's probably going to be several questions that you have, which I'm excited to answer. So would love to get in and dive into some of those questions right away.
All right. Thanks so much for that presentation, Miles. That was fantastic. I do have to say that I was disappointed to hear that it wasn't the actress Emma Stone from that quote. I was sort of hoping she had changed careers and then we could get that company on as a webinar vendor and then I could talk to her, this way. So, you let me down.
I was to say this Hollywood strike. You know what? Maybe that is. I'll have to do some research and I'll let you know.
I'll hold out that hope. So anyway, that was a great presentation, and what you're saying is so important now more than ever. The attacks aren't stopping; they're continuing to increase. ChatGPT is making phishing attacks better and better all the time, and the black hats are not giving up. the money is still there, and so it's going to continue, I think, on and on. You're right. We have some great questions that have come in. So if you're ready, we'll get to some of them right now.
Let's do it. And you mentioned, this isn't stopping. By 2025, cybercrimes will make up the third largest GDP on Earth at just over $10.5 trillion. So if we were looking at GDP, we've got the US at about 20 trillion. We've got China at about 14. And the third largest economy on Earth would be cybercrime. So I always mention that in a lot of my presentations. Super scary to think about.
There's a there's a stat that stands out.
Definitely.
And makes you sit up, right? So yeah, absolutely. So first question we've got for you today, Miles. What's the best practice on how often to conduct phishing trainings? I guess another way to ask that is, what is the current conventional wisdom on how often this should be done?
So most companies say we should do one a month. It used to be people were doing one a year or twice a year. That changed, during COVID to, quarterly. And now we're hearing 11 times a year, because that means 1 month you're going to be looking and trying to figure out which one of these emails is actually that, that phishing email that has been sent out. So it's either 11 or 12, depending on who you ask.
Wow. And of course the attacks are changing that quickly too, now that the bad guys have incorporated AI and other things. Things are just happening so rapidly. So that makes a lot of sense too. All right. Next question. Is there a limit to the number of phishing campaigns that a client can create?
Nope. You can do as many as you like. I actually recently had the first partner reach out to me who said, he needs more because he's hit his limit. And I was shocked, because we have a lot of campaigns on there. And I love the fact that this client is doing that many phishing simulations, that they want more and more. And, we're producing content really quickly. And this is the first time I've ever heard that. So there's a lot of content out there that we can have, and obviously the users will get to use.
Okay. All right. Great. Next up. And this relates to something you talked about earlier, and it's security awareness training and cyber insurance. Now, you mentioned earlier in your presentation that it is harder and harder to get cyber insurance than ever. So where does the security awareness training fit into this new model, where not just, anyone with a credit card can get it?
Of course. Well, most cyber insurance companies are going to ask several questions. Do you have an anti-phishing solution? Do you have a managed SOC? Do you have, security awareness training? So this is just, a cog in the motor of what you're going to probably need going forward. Whether you've not had cyber insurance in the past or you have, probably for 2024, the chance of you getting cyber insurance, if you don't show that you're doing some type of security awareness training, is going to be slim. So if there is a policy out there that just says, oh yeah, we don't care if you have cyber insurance, I haven't heard about it. So that's something that's going to be, probably a mandatory check mark going forward.
Right. And we've all seen the growth, for instance, in ransoms that are demanded in ransomware attacks. So this insurance, boy, is increasingly important to have as well. Yeah. Okay. I think we have time for one more question today, Miles,
Sure.
And let's look at this one. So an attendee wants to know: are the training videos available in Spanish?
Yes, they are. First of all, hola. That's about my limited Spanish. English, Spanish, Portuguese, Canadian French, and then we also have several of our languages subtitled in German, Dutch, Italian, as well as Hebrew. And we're always looking to add to that list as well. So good question. We definitely have Spanish.
And then a reminder to check back in the future as you're adding more languages as well, and seeing what's new out there. Well, Miles, this has been a fascinating discussion today. Thanks so much for the presentation and the increasing and unending importance of security awareness training. It's hard for me to think of one single thing that could be more important than closing that door of the human factor, in terms of keeping your company safe from the bad guys that are out there. So I want to thank you for that today. And thanks so much for being here. It was a delight.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Oh man, Keith, Miles, I love that conversation. What a great presentation. And thank you both for sticking around and digging into some of the audience Q&A. Man, I really love when we get to talk about the human element, because I'm so fascinated by the responses that all of you have out there, as well as, obviously our incredible expert speakers. But there's that whole gamut through from the frustration with it, the fear of it, the joy of it, and what humans can do, and how we can enhance existing systems, as well as focusing on maybe where we are the weakest link. And it's such an interesting conversation. It's always nuanced, it's always layered, and there's always different interpretations. And so I appreciate all of you who kind of chime in sometimes and make comments, as well as asking questions, but sharing your thoughts and your feelings and your reactions as we go through some of these conversations is really interesting to hear. So thank you to everyone in the audience who has been making comments, asking questions, and participating throughout the day today. One more way to participate is to click on that poll. And this is really your gift to yourself, because what you're going to do is let ID Agent know how they can follow up with you, what additional information they can send your way to kind of expand on what we just heard from Miles. So click on the poll right now. Be sure you've got that information coming your way. I will also encourage you all to head over to the handouts tab. Make sure you've got the ID Agent handout. It's actually a product brief. Sorry, I'm choking here. I swallowed my air too fast. I didn't know that was a thing you could do. There's a product brief there from ID Agent on Bullfish ID. It is such a fun and helpful read, really well laid out, full of great info. Go and check that out. So while you guys are getting that handout together, while you're clicking on the poll and asking any last questions now, again, Miles probably won't have time to get back to anyone on live chat before we wrap it up, because that's right, we are coming to the close of our EcoCast today, but we will make sure that all of the questions get sent on over to the ID Agent team, so you will get responses back to all of your questions. So keep those coming in. If you have any last questions for Strong DM, anything throughout the day today, please get those questions in. We'll make sure that you get answers back. All right, well, with that means it is time for our very last prize giveaway. So we have 2 more $300 Amazon gift cards that we are going to give to 2 lucky winners here live and present with us at the EcoCast. And those next winners are David Hopkins of Delaware, and Seth Ritchie of Colorado. Congratulations. I'll read all the winners again. We have our wonderful Viking Volts Tribergs of Minnesota, and then David Hopkins of Delaware, and Seth Ritchie of Colorado. You guys might be wonderful Vikings as well. I don't know. You feel free to be Vikings if you want to be, but maybe not football this year. Although I just watched I got to go to the Bears Vikings game on Sunday. It was very exciting. It did not go well for the Bears, but that was fine. It was a good time. The sun was out. That was a fun trip. Anyways, I am digressing, but if anyone wants to talk about football, we can get into that later. All right, well, we're going to keep things moving and wrap up our EcoCast here today. Those are all our prizes, but I do want to remind you that you are entered to win that Best Question gift card if you're submitting questions, and we do that from each session. We're reviewing all of the questions asked after we wrap up, so even if we don't get to your question live in a Q&A session, you are still entered to win, so keep those questions coming in. Okay, my friends, well, you know this part. This is where I invite you all to join into the conversation, because I would love to chat with all of you. So if anyone out there has a solution, a product, a story that you think would be important to tell on an EcoCast, MegaCast, webinar, whatever you have in mind, we would love to chat with you. So shoot us a message at connect@actualtechmedia.com. Let us know what you have in mind, and we'll see what we can set up. All right. Well, with that, on behalf of the Actual Tech Media team, I want to once again thank all of our wonderful speakers here with us today from Strong DM and ID Agent for making this EcoCast possible. What an interesting conversation. Alan, I see, is reminding us all that the F1 race in Austin is approaching. So if no one wants to talk about football, we've got some F1 fans out there. I mean, speaking of hyperautomation, I really feel like F1 is the epitome of all things hyper and speed and automation. So, that's a fair segue, Alan. I'm with you on that. All right. Well, speaking of all of you out there, I do want to stop and extend a big and special thank you, as always, to all of you for attending for being a part of our EcoCast today. As I was just saying, I love seeing your questions. I love seeing your insights. I love seeing the conversations that y'all are having in terms of how this is affecting your organizations or how you are approaching it or thinking about it, because sometimes things are black and white, right? Sometimes things are cut and dry and easy peasy and checking a list. Very rarely is it that, but it does happen. There are some yes, no, black, white situations, but more often than not, it's all in the gray area, right? More often than not, it's slightly interpretive. It's how we apply things and how they work for us or how they don't work for us and how our team works with them. So, I think these conversations, and especially when we're talking about best practices, and when we're looking at something like hyperautomation, which is all opportunity, it's all opportunity. And I think, speaking of being in Chicago last weekend, there was a little statue on top of one of the buildings. If anyone's ever done the river architecture tour in Chicago, talking about the spirit of progress, there's a little statue and it's looking ahead, and it was on a Montgomery Ward building. And it's a cool thing to think about. And I kind of had that mental image in my head as we were going through this conversation today, that all of us are this beautiful spirit of progress, just looking ahead and skating forward into that next step. And isn't that cool and exciting? So thank you all for being a part of that conversation today. I hope that you've gotten fired up and ready to take that next step, whatever that looks like for your organization. And speaking of next steps, I want to invite you all to come back and join us on Wednesday, October 18th. That is tomorrow. We're going to meet up at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific, nice and early for you Pacificers. You can come have coffee with me in the morning. And if you're in the East Coast, you can have a nice lunch break. We're going to be talking about enabling the intersection of IT security and networked AV. So come have an interesting chat. If this is something that is on your radar, you want to learn a little bit more about AV tech, join us for that conversation, enabling the intersection of IT security and networked AV. Again, tomorrow, Wednesday, October 18th, and that is at 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. All right, my friends. Well, that is all I have for you today. I hope that you are all having a wonderful day, and I hope that I get to see you all again soon. And until then, enjoy your afternoon, friends.